To put you in the frame, you know what I'm saying. To put you in the frame, we have recorded this already, but we didn't press record on the sound. So we'd go through the whole introduction.
We basically completed it and it wasn't recording, and now
It was really good as well.
it's really good.
It was
So
really good.
we expected it to work. We
expected
it
had
to
a lot-
work.
Is it recording still? It's recording still.
That's good. There's a red light there.
Yeah.
That is a red light.
Lesson learned.
Gosh, our expectations were like, boop,
Yeah.
meh,
So expectations.
So
expectations.
anyway, we've mentioned the word expectations about 50 times already. Think you've got the message, what we're talking about a little bit today. We've added tonight, we've added Joel into the mix.
Hello.
Hello, Joel.
All right.
Jolie C.
Just added me. What are you expecting from me? Like, come on, tell me.
Yeah, and tonight we're talking about expectations. So, good expectations, bad expectations. Have you had expectations? Have they panned out? Have they played out? How have you dealt with it? All that kind of stuff. I think we
Heavy
all have
stuff.
expectations, don't we?
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, we do.
Naomi, how about you tell us about some of your expectations?
My expectations. Well, I have many expectations. Reason being is because I am a primary school teacher.
Come on.
Woo. Yes, primary school teacher. You start the year off with like heavy expectations. Like
What year group are you
On
teaching?
you?
What year
sorry,
group?
Joel.
Sorry.
no,
what
so
year group?
what year group? I'm year 5
Year
teacher.
5, very nice.
I
Oh,
completely
year
cut
five
across
teacher.
your question
That's
there.
right. That's
So
right. I
you don't
expected it. Anyway, now for your question.
Now for my question.
No, hang on. I was
year-
so busy feeling really guilty about that moment. I even listened to the answer.
Yeah, year 5 teacher.
Year five
I'm a year
teacher.
5 teacher.
Sorry.
Yes. I have a wonderful class, and I set expectations every year. So every year you always set those big expectations as the things that you need to do and what I expect in my classroom. And to be honest, we come up with them together, so it's not just by myself, but it's those things of like, no shouting out when the teacher is talking. Please don't poke the person next to you as we're trying to get on through the lesson. Let's just make sure that like we are listening. But there's like different expectations. But we come up with like a bit of like a class charter, as we say, and those are our expectations. So one of them being, that we must respect each other.
Love that.
We need to make sure that because obviously people come from different backgrounds, culture, people look different and all that type of stuff. But we also want to just make sure that everyone knows the expectation of we must treat everyone else like how we want to be treated.
Totally right.
So, that's one of my top expectations, I would say, in class.
Yeah.
Is it often met?
I can tell you were a troublesome kid.
That's a great question. I mean, at the start, it seems like it's going to be like, I feel like, we're on a great, track and meeting these expectations. We get halfway through the year and those expectations just dip automatically and we don't reach those expectations. And actually, the time when you don't meet those expectations, you sometimes, as a teacher, sometimes you feel it. Sometimes you're just like, we went through this at the beginning of the year and now we've got halfway through the year and the expectations have just gone out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's
I can
tough.
feel your frustration.
Yeah. And how many days have you been in class this year?
2.
It's a great start. It's a great start.
Solid start to the year.
I think about it now. I was like,
Ooh,
2.
only 2.
2 days, yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, so you're off to a good start then.
Off to a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a new class as well.
Yeah, new class. Yeah, new class. I'm talking from experience because I've been in year 5 before, hence why I was talking about the expectations dip. But yeah, new class. They're great. They're, kids, expectations. They need expectations. They need to know what they can and cannot do. They need to feel that kind of, they need that structure. Expectation helps, children with structure, knowing what they want to do. But that's kids. Adults, a bit different.
Yeah.
Setting expectations as adults is a bit different. Sometimes it doesn't require always that structure. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose like the conversation we had in the first take, which was great, was about our expectations in life, wasn't it? And kind of a little bit about what we spoke about was like how we respond to expectations. So I suppose throwing that question back out there of, how do we respond when expectations don't necessarily go the way we expect? or is it healthy to pin too much on expectations? Kind of any examples?
Throw it out there.
When was the last time? I mean, I'm saying this as if I don't know what story you've got coming up.
It might be slightly.
Oh, you're going to do a different story?
Well, the story I
that's
went into was
interesting.
about kidney stones.
The
so
whole
I
expectation.
had
I've got
kidney
expectations
stones.
right in this moment, and
But
you're throwing it.
I
You're
might throw
throwing
it
a
different.
curveball.
Well, we talked a little bit about university and things like that. So I
Okay.
suppose.
No, I think you should go
know.
with the first story because I thought that was more. No, well, I don't know what the
I
second
was gonna
story
say,
is.
you don't know the second story, so thanks for that. Well, the first story was the fact I had kidney stones this year. Don't recommend them, and just that threw a lot of expectations out the water because I think. So I get to work with youth and young people, and kind of the programs that we get to do here at the church. Kind of, I expected to be heavily involved in and kind of do a lot within that. And I was thinking we've got some momentum coming off the back of Easter and stuff like that. And then wham bam, thank you, ma'am. I get a kidney stone and I'm in a lot of pain and off work for a kind of a month, and the process of kidney stones taking 3 to 4 months and still waiting for them to pass and all that kind of stuff. So you end up kind of just, your plans end up changing, your expectations change, and it can be quite difficult. But I think what helps is I've got quite a laid back personality, so it's like, what are you actually pinning it on, or are you looking at all the factors within the expectation? So some of that kind of what went on with kidney stones, it's like I couldn't really avoid it, it's just happened. So I suppose you've got to show a little bit of grace to yourself, and it's like, as much as it can be disappointing that's happened, it's like there's not a lot I can do about it. So how do we move forward? How do I push on past that? And again, talking about response, it's like, how do I respond to that in the moment? And I suppose not sit in the disappointment of it. It's like, how do I learn from the disappointment, or learn from whatever I can learn from in that moment, and how do I push forward with that, and maybe set a new expectation, or move forward in the expectations I had before, but it's just a little bit delayed, if that makes sense. So it's quite
There's like this
interesting.
almost a little bit of what are your expectations when the unexpected happens, because there's certain things you just can't expect. Like, you don't get up one day and go, I expect kidney stones.
No.
Like, it's not something
Definitely didn't.
It's not something you just generally go, oh, okay, out of all the billions of possibilities, I expect that. I'm thinking about it and proactively not. Have we told everybody? I forget if this is the first time or both times. Did you say it was because of dairy?
So it's because of dairy,
Yeah.
So that's disappointing.
Yeah. Joel loves cheese.
He
Love
loves
the
cheese.
cheese.
Yeah. Although,
Yeah.
do you love milk?
I do enjoy milk. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a glass of milk?
Yeah, I'm partial to a glass of milk. To be honest, I am partial.
Do you have a glass of milk?
No, oat milk for me. I don't drink any like full on dairy. I'm like full on oat milk.
Full on oaty.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Do you know what? I do quite like an oat milk in a coffee.
it's great.
Yeah, and coffee is not too bad.
Yeah.
I was going to say, are you a milk fiend? Are you partial to a glass of milk?
I wouldn't say I am that partial. I grew up on milk a lot, but I wouldn't. Anyway, how have we got onto this?
Yeah, we need to talk
Dairy.
about dairy.
Sorry, dairy. Where was I going with
Expectations.
dairy?
So-
I don't know where I was going with it. I got so far down this track of dairy and milk.
It's changed the expectations of the conversation.
I don't even know where I was
I
going with
suppose we were talking a little bit about disappointment, kind of, things might change, or things might happen that are unexpected.
Yeah, expectations in the unexpected. So you hadn't planned or thought that this would be something that you might actually have to deal with. So your expectations almost have to change for your immediacy, don't they? So kind of like, how did you handle the change of pace, the change of plans? I know you were disappointed.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing to feel that, but how did you actually handle it?
Yeah, I think it kind of was difficult in waves, because I think like there came a period of time where initially I was in a lot of pain, and then kind of I had a week where I was starting to get better, then I got a really bad infection as well, and then that all kind of kicked off, and I get to the point where I was like, I was off work for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I feel really guilty being at home and just sitting around doing nothing and not working and different things like that. But actually there wasn't a lot I could do about it. I wasn't very well, so but at the same time I was like, people I work with are there in the office doing things, and I was like, I could be doing a lot more, and maybe I can do some stuff from home. But
and also, sorry, just to cut you off, how you said about this expectation of you, once you had the kidney stones and you had the process of, obviously it needed to like pass through and all that type of stuff, but you were told, sorry, I say that, I know why you're laughing.
It wasn't a fun experience.
It wasn't a fun experience, but there was an expectation from the doctor to go, by this point, this is how you get better, and sometimes you believe those expectations. Yeah. And we're so gullible to go in, because somebody said that, and I'm going to expect it.
Well, there was a point I was supposed to have an operation to have them removed. That got cancelled, and then that kind of just was, it was really annoying. I was fuming, really, because I was like, I've been told this, I was supposed to go in today, have this operation, this has not happened. Why hasn't this happened? And it's prolonged all this. But I suppose, again, not just with this story exclusively, with any kind of experience that we have, it's like, what are we learning, I suppose, about ourselves within that? We spoke a little bit about your story of uni, so I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit and just talk about those expectations.
Again. No, we're taking that.
You've got to relive it again.
It's going to be an ongoing joke throughout this whole thing. Uni was a great experience for myself. I know some people don't always choose the option to go to uni, and that is okay. But I just wanted to go to university, and I got to third year. I thought after third year I'm going to be a teacher. I was like, so set on it. Then I got into third year, and I was like, at the end of third year, I was like, I actually don't know if I want to be a teacher, but then I'm just still going to push through it anyway. So there's the expectation that after, so to become a teacher previously, and you don't have to do that now, is you have to do these tests, maths and English tests, so that they can see if you can. I don't think it's anything to do with teaching, to be honest. It's just so that, I think it was just like a part of like a thing that you just needed to do to pass on to then doing teaching as a degree. And I was like, I'm going to be fine. So I passed my English straight away, quick, didn't even have a problem. And I got to my maths. And so I'm actually really good at maths, but I think I failed. I took the test I said in the previous video, I took the test about like 5.
Why are you laughing at everyone else's pain?
You're laughing at everyone else's pain. I'm like, do you know how embarrassing it was when I had to keep going to my parents? I failed. And I didn't pass this one. I even travelled, I didn't even say this in the last one, so this is good content. I travelled all the way by bus to Coventry because I thought maybe going to a different place will actually help me pass. Got there, went to the test, and I failed. That was the last time. And that was...
You just have to laugh out the microphone some more.
I know, that is... no. And that was... so the expectation, it just died down as soon as I finished, and I was like, I failed, and I went to Coventry and did that.
Why did you not say that in the first? I'm glad
you know
you
what?
didn't,
I said it exactly.
Funny.
Hey,
I mean, the build-up to that story was great.
The build-up. Thanks, guys. I literally failed. So then I was just like, okay, so what am I going to do? And this expectation that I did have of becoming a teacher had obviously gone. So then I was just like, what do I do? So I ended up working for a charity for about 2 years, and wasn't what I expected, complete different route, because I'm like, being a teacher, get secure, in a job, all that type of stuff that I wanted to do. That was my expectation for my life. But then it went a complete different way. And I didn't really know how to handle it, really. So it was quite difficult to I guess it was a difficult process to go through, because I've seen everyone else, getting it's when you see other people getting those expectations that you want. So you see everyone else, everyone else is moving on, and they're on Instagram. They're like, I'm starting my teaching degree. They put it on, at the time it was like Facebook. You put, I'm on my teaching degree, blah blah. And then you're sitting there going,
God, why am I not? Yeah.
Why am I not getting those expectations? And especially me being a Christian, going, you know what, Lord, these promises that you have for my life, I was counting on it, and these expectations that I had, but everyone else seems to be getting it, and yet I'm not. how do I process that? How do I deal with that? So that was quite a struggle.
Yeah.
And in that time, genuinely, like I think we talked about it before, didn't we? About how sometimes the timing of an expectation might not be may not be needed for that time. So now that I am a teacher, just to let you know, I got this degree, I secured it, and I'm now the best teacher ever. But I
your maths. Come on now.
And I passed my maths. Well, I actually didn't need to do maths. It was that time when they scrapped it. They were like, you don't have to do maths and English. You could just jump onto the degree.
You could have just taken the compliment, but
Thank you.
Yep.
But we digress. But when we come back to
Yeah.
But
Well, we're on camera here.
We come back to because now I am a teacher. But in that time of waiting for that expectation of wanting to actually be a teacher, I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
I learned so much about myself of going actually, because I don't have that yet. What is it I'm doing and I'm learning? I mean, I've learned so much working for a charity, working with young people, and I wanted to be a primary school teacher, so you can tell the difference. Primary school, young people, complete different, all in secondary school. So I was working completely in secondary school. So I took a different route. But then I was just like, you know what? I learned a lot about myself. I learned who I am. Gave me the confidence, and actually the confidence that I needed to be a teacher. And I don't think I had that confidence then. So my expectations came, but it just came with so much more.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was going into teaching with just a lot more to give.
Interesting.
again,
Yeah.
I think I know you spoke before about patience and being impatient and stuff, but I think that probably doesn't help expectations quite a lot of the time, because when you're expecting something, most times you're expecting something new or fresh to happen. And if you're impatient, all you're thinking about and all you're focusing about is that expectation. Whereas, I suppose, to coin a slightly cheesy phrase, is like count your blessings. It's like actually everything that's outside of that expectation. What are we learning? What are we growing in? That helps build us to that new, fresh thing. And again, I suppose that's all in how do you respond if an expectation isn't happening, or you're waiting for something, or it's happening, taking longer than you expected. So it's quite interesting.
There's just so many factors, I think, that are in play, and I think you know, I mentioned, I don't want to say it again, I mentioned it the first time. We can, I've mentioned about the guitar on the back here. It's easy to have a healthy expectation if I pick up the guitar every day and practice over the course of my life. I'm going to get better at the guitar, and I can safely expect that if I put the guitar down and it collects dust, I'm not going to pick it up again in 6 months' time and be as good as I was. And that plays out for a whole heap of different things. I think there's a healthy level of expectation that comes with, and this is the same for anybody. If you want to achieve something, generally you might have a few lucky few that make it and fast track and do all this kind of thing. But for the vast majority of people, you got to work for it. And I think part of it's the working thing, but part of expectations as well is sometimes I find this is, with that first one as well, I think, I don't know if your parents had ever said to you, like, well, how else did you expect that to work out? And it's such an obvious question, but usually they're asking you that when I haven't done something or I've done something stupid, and either way, the end result is kind of not a positive thing. But there's this other part of expectations as well is, God, I've really worked hard at this. And by now, I'd expected to have been further than I am, doing something different to what I'm doing. But why is it that I'm not in that place? Why am I not teaching now? Why am I doing it? And I think for me, there's always been this underlying thing about expectations, about just trusting God at certain points in time. If you're doing the right things, if you're, maintaining your relationship with God, really stepping in faith there, praying for it, but also being practical and chasing the right things. And I don't know, sometimes I just think, how on earth do we get to the point where it just seems to happen at the right moment in time? I expected to come out of uni. I know we talked about uni a lot. I came out of uni expecting to get a job after working my socks off through school, college, uni, foundation courses, all that kind of stuff, studying what I love to do now, you know, let's just call it graphic design for the sake of it. But how is it now that I get to do it? And there was such a gap in between where I came out of uni and I ended up in retail. Like, well, that was not my expectation. That wasn't the plan. But they didn't line up. But all of a sudden, you know, 5 years later, I pray to God and say, God, where are you in this? And within a week, the whole thing's just changed. And if I look back and think, well, what did I learn in that time?
The learning, yeah. What have you learned? Yeah.
That there is, you know, I think God just looked after me more, you know, and so it's less about the expectations and just saying, you know, I'm passionate about this. This is what I'd love to do, but got to trust you with it.
Yeah,
so it's like trusting the process.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, it's interesting because I suppose for us with faith, believing in God, you know, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier, but you kind of, you put your faith in the process because you feel like, for us, we believe that God's in it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the difficulty is that in culture, and you see kind of in culture, everything has got to be instant.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
everyone uses the example of Amazon Prime, the fact that you can just go on Amazon, order, and the next day it's there and it's coming. And there's so much things that you can just do and get straight away, you know. Look at social media, content that you want, videos that you want to watch, you just get straight away, you know. Just TV shows you get straight away, you know, all those kind of things. So it builds up, I suppose, that impatience that we've spoken about, and it's because you just expect everything to just happen now and just fall on your lap and that's it. But actually there's so much to the process, you know, and again, for us, we believe that God's in the process, so we can kind of pin things on that a little bit more. But I think it can be so difficult to remember that at times because culture's telling you, well, you should be getting this thing straight away. Or, and I think that's what makes it difficult when it comes to expectations, for sure.
And that's especially like when you say culture with jobs or careers or anything like that, it's always like the next thing. So I expect to get this salary by next year. I'm expected to get a pay rise this year. I'm expected to get like we're built on a culture with expectations. Like we are in a culture where we revolve around the next best thing. We expect to have this, we expect to have that because of, it's just culture. And that's what we've been, you know, raised. Just because, you know, we say that our faith is what makes us part of us, but we also live in this world too. Like we also have these expectations. So I think it is looking at it and just going, actually, sometimes if I don't hit those expectations, or I don't meet those expectations, it goes back to, but what are you doing in the meantime? What are you still like? Is it the fact that maybe I might never get my expectations of what I want in life? What then? You know, just because we say we're Christians, but that's our faith, but we don't get always what we expect in life. So when we don't get it, what do we do?
Yeah, and Pastor Johnny always talks about, which I think is valid, it's like, what's our character like when something doesn't go as we expected it to? You know, have we got integrity with our character to not, I don't know, get frustrated, be disappointed, but outside of a healthy, you know, how do we deal with it? How do we handle it well? You know, I think there's a lot of growing in that, isn't there?
There's huge, and do you know what? It's with when you like jobs or anything out with careers and stuff, or in any workplace you're in, I think when you have this expectation, let's say to be maybe a senior manager, or, you know, in the retail, maybe be like an area manager or just something like that, and you have the people above you and the boss, and they said, you know what, you know, we don't think you're capable of being the area manager just yet, and you had this expectation that you were going to be by the end of this year, for example. The bosses or whoever's in charge doesn't look at the fact of whether you haven't got it. They look at your character. When you go for a job interview, they look at everything that you say, okay, this person expected to be the area manager of this shop, for example, but I'm actually looking at their character, how they're dealing with it. And then they watch and they analyse you. I've talked to lots of like people who are managers. They've sat and they've gone, we actually look for how people deal with disappointment. And how you deal with disappointment gives them more of a reason to go, oh gosh, this job isn't you. But then you find out maybe a year later, they're like, no, we don't want you to be the area manager. We want you to be a manager of like a full-on, like one of the bosses, or maybe something more. So I think your expectations sometimes, you might, and maybe I'm trying to think maybe on the lines of, you may set your expectations a little bit lower than actually what you think. So you're going, I just feel like I need to be here because I'm the area manager, but then maybe there's something more for you in your expectation, and because you haven't got what you wanted, you kind of just go, oh, that's a disappointment. But actually, there's something bigger to that expectation. Does that make sense? There's more of a bigger sense.
It's interesting because there's almost the two layers to it. Is we often have expectations over things, and then the second part is we have an expectation over the amount of time it took to get to that thing.
Yeah.
Usually, our expectation is it should come quicker, and we should be progressing.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes I think the more challenging one is when it's longer.
Yeah.
Because usually it comes, but actually it just takes more time to get there. And I think there's a lot of power in what are we doing in that time?
Yeah.
I think it does come back to what Pete Earl says. I kind of a few weeks ago, Pete Earl talked about in the times of maybe just testing your faith, or times of where time's extended and we haven't seen as much breakthrough as we'd like. Well, are you withdrawing, or are you stepping forth into it and being more passionate about it? Are you praying hard for it? Are you practicing it more?
Yeah.
I think it can be easy to get despondent and kind of just go, oh, forget it then.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
back,
that didn't work out. But actually, are you going to go, right, it didn't work out, so here I am, God, I'm pressing in and pressing on harder. Help me, give me the strength, the patience, the tenacity to keep going with it. And I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always interesting looking back at situations, because I don't know if you look back with, I suppose, your time in retail and then going into what you wanted to do and the teaching, kind of you look back and think, actually, when I actually went into it, I was more ready than
Yeah, 100%.
I could have been, like,
Yeah.
you know, and actually if I'd have gone in earlier, I wouldn't have been as ready. Because I certainly look back at situations in my life and think, if I'd have gone in when I expected it to happen, actually I wasn't ready at all. But when I've gone in when it's happened, actually I was so ready and just raring to go. And there's been so much learning in that process and so much learning in what's happened before.
And God's timing is often so unexpected, but so perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's where it ends up being beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We could talk about this for ages,
I
right?
love expectations.
It's a good topic. It is a good
great
topic.
It's a big topic.
It's a bit, but like we said before, though, again, I know we've talked about this again, but I don't know if this is like ended, has it? We
No,
can
it
still
hasn't
keep
ended.
going.
This has not ended. This
No.
is an ellipsis, not a full stop.
Yes, a cliffhanger.
A
is what we
cliffhanger.
call-
A cliffhanger?
Yeah,
Have
that's-
we left enough suspense
I mean,
for a cliffhanger?
Yeah, basically,
Is
we've
this a good movie
we've
in your
left-
eyes?
yeah, no.
Do you want a sequel?
Yeah, do you want a sequel? No, we don't have to put a pin in it, basically. We're just
No.
allowing it to just... We may do another part to this.
I'd
or
love to do it. I'd love to talk more about this.
Yeah, we'd love to
Because
talk
actually,
more.
I think there's a lot in it.
Yeah. And maybe those who are watching, maybe you could just comment and just share maybe your expectations that you had, or maybe questions that you may want to ask us. Some questions that we could answer in the next video, part 2.
Yeah.
But we would love to hear like your story. Maybe let's create like maybe like a chat going, or just something there, just so that we can maybe just talk a little bit more about expectations, because they're not always easy to hit, but like
Yeah.
it's good to just
Cool.
yeah.
I think it's been good.
Yeah.
I expected a good conversation, and
I expected
it's delivered.
The
conversation.
So-
second time round.
to me anyway.
Cool. Happy? Yeah?